Hello, welcome to a Retiring in Japan mini. I decided to introduce this mini format when I have days that either aren't active enough or at least active in a public sense to, take videos about, or days that are just days that, it's not a good day to lift a camera. Today was kind of a little of the former, mostly the former. What I did today, it's another, as you can see, another dreary day. Not a lot of rain. There was some rain this morning. I worked on the house. Yumiko had to spend the day with her dad most of the day, taking him to doctor's appointments. And Yumiko had a doctor's appointment herself. So I was home alone with the dogs most of the day. And what I did was I took time to organize the stuff that we brought with us from America, which consisted of 2 suitcases each and a couple of big boxes of photographs and memories. The things that you just, as hard as we try to get rid of everything in life, there's some things you just can't, photographs, etc. And we're not the type to digitize our photos, although I do have a large collection of digital photos. I like holding on to the real thing. For a guy that doesn't keep much of anything, it's kind of an extraordinary, well, I shouldn't say extraordinary, it's an exception. Anyway, so as a result, I didn't film anything because it just didn't seem right to be having the camera on while I was opening boxes of my family's private items. So I just did that in quiet and with the dogs. And then Yumiko came back and we went out. We had lunch. She brought home lunch. We eat out a lot these days, and we're still in the process of moving. And we also like eating out or bringing stuff home. So then after that, we went to Nitori, which is a furniture store, to do some shopping. I didn't buy anything. I was scoping things out. I guess that's an indication of my change. Maybe I could call it maturity over the years, where instead of just rushing to furnish a house, I like to look at options, think about them, take measurements, stuff that, I think younger people do, people who mature at a faster rate than me would have done it at a much earlier age, but it's taken me this long to get to that point, to not rush. The IKEA furniture is arriving in 3 days, namely the sofa for my room, and I really want to get that in place so that I know what the remaining measurements of the room are, what empty space that I still have to work with after the sofa is in place. So I don't want to be left in a position where I buy the other accessories now, get the sofa, and then realize I've squished myself into a 6 tatami mat room more than I should. So I'm pleased with that. I'm pleased with that approach. Don't know exactly where it came from. It seems more native now than before. Because it used to be I would just rush to purchase everything. If it seems like I'm a little down and melancholy today, remember I said there were 2 reasons to not run the camera. One would be practical. The other would be just not that kind of day. And that's just not that kind of day. I know what it is, in part. It's a couple of things. This settling into this new life is exhausting, and we haven't really taken a day off since forever. I mean, even before I came to America, it was go, go, go for 6 months after we, took apart our apartment in Huntington Beach, the last home we really had in America. And I lived basically on the road, so to speak, living in a tiny house with the 2 dogs and then the 1 dog after we sent Ollie over first. It was like living in transit, when you're just at the airport and you're too busy to notice how busy you are and how exhausted you're becoming. And then when I got here, we made an offer on the house behind me 2 days after I arrived. We looked at it and we were in motion ever since then. So it's been 6 months added to 2 months. That's 8 months, right? More than 8 months of constant action, not being settled anywhere. And now, kind of just like with this storm that came through, it kind of made it feel like we're really home. Because the storm, in a way, the wind and the rain, feels like it swept away something, just as we were kind of reached a critical mass in removing the items from the home that were left behind. I told you we made a decision to keep the possessions of the former owner. In hindsight, I wouldn't advise against it necessarily. What does that mean in hindsight? If someone was to ask me, if they were in the situation of buying a home and the owner offered a discount to leave the items, I would say it's going to be some work to clean up. But also there's another thing that I didn't expect and only discovered after the fact, which is you're moving into someone else's house in that case, right? Or at least you're taking possession of someone's house. Unlike living in an apartment where dozens or maybe multiple dozens of people have lived, if the apartment's been around long enough, you don't feel that sense, because between each tenant, the landlords usually do a pretty good job of cleaning it out. I mean, where we lived in Irvine with the Irvine Company, it was like moving into a brand new hotel room every time. I mean, without sans furniture. You know what I mean? They did such a great job of cleaning, painting walls, changing carpets, etc. You never felt like you were occupying a space that someone else did. When you're moving into an old house, it's got everybody's possessions in it. It's quite another matter. And it's one thing to get rid of the items. It's another thing to overcome the mental inertia of moving into someone's place. We did it in pretty short order, because in the end they didn't leave very much. Still, it's taken some time to overcome that, because we've been living here like we've been in someone else's house, which we in fact are. But this storm that came through that made our garden so gardeny, with this aroma of spring just coming, swept away that last remnant. And so I spent the day this morning unpacking boxes of photographs and memories. And even though I didn't place them around the house, and this is about as touchy-feely as you'll ever hear me. I'm not a spiritual person at all. But it was like our spirit came into this house. I don't mean it that way, because I don't believe in such a thing, but nevertheless, it's there. Seeing my daughter's photos and her things and the things of our past being put into storage cabinets, and a few things put out on display. And then the very last of what the old owner left behind, put into a corner to be taken away and disposed of properly, did something. So it was a kind of a melancholy day, filled with transition and exhaustion, that just left me in a place I didn't want to raise the camera and edit a video and do all of that. So I'm going to call this a Retiring in Japan mini. And I'll do this once in a while when I have a day like this. Doesn't mean that the content isn't worthwhile. In fact, I'll probably tell my daughter in the future that if you ever want to go back and review Mom and Dad's retiring journal, maybe look for the minis. That may be where the juice is. I think I'll leave it at that. One last, have a look maybe at the garden. This is all just wild. But soon I'm going to begin taming all of this. I'm going to make this into our garden. I'm eager for the sun to come, to dry the soil so I can begin working this land. I'm very excited about all of this. For now, I'm going to leave you then with a shot of the river and wish you all the best. Remember to be safe, but not too safe. Take care.